Now that I'm finished creating the cup part of my mug and it's about the right height, I need to go in and refine things. You can see here there's dents in it and there's spots sticking out, and it kind of does that a little bit throughout. I've already fixed a lot of it, but what I'm going to do right now is anywhere where there's a dent in it, I'm going to put my fingers inside and just gently press and slide my fingers upward. And if there's a spot sticking out, I can go in from the outside, pressing inward. I'm going to keep doing that just a little bit here. So that eventually it will be about the same shape along this edge all the way around. Once I've done that and I've gotten things as smooth as I need them to be, I can actually take one of these big scoring tools and I can smooth this back a little bit. I can smooth it out like this, kind of changing directions. It'll leave some clay chunks on there. You have to clean it off once in a while you're doing this so it doesn't leave those clay chunks behind as often. And this will smooth it out quite a bit. So if any of you are thinking, wow, my project is kind of a mess, it's lopsided and covered in chunks of clay, these are two ways to take care of those problems. It's not perfect, but it looks a lot better than it did. This also helps if you still have a little bit of your seams showing. It'll help take care of most of the last of that. All right, so I think that that's good enough. I'm going to come up here to the top of this, and I need to make sure that it's level. See, I have this little bit that's a little bit lower than the rest. As you spin it, you can see that it changes height right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the hook that's on the other end of my knife, and I'm going to try to position this as close to the middle of my banding wheel as I can. Okay, and then I'm going to put my elbow on the table. I'm going to hold my hand, try to keep it in one spot. And I'm going to turn my banding wheel, leaving a line all the way around. That line is now for me to go in with the other end, my knife, and cut. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to look better than it was. And hopefully I can clean it up and no one will ever know that it has little variations in it. Almost there. Once I get to the end, I can take that off. It won't necessarily all come off in one piece. Now what I have here is rough corners, and on anything that we make out of ceramics, we don't want those corners. It makes it look unfinished. It makes it look like you didn't care about it. And also, any of these corners that get bumped on something hard are more likely to break. So what I like to do now is go in and I'm pinching it, but I'm not making it paper thin. Pinching those corners away. So that's taking off the most fragile part of it. It's also making the top of it appear to be a little bit thinner, making it look more professionally finished. And then you can see I still have bits on there. I need to go in, keep one finger for support, no matter or whether I'm smoothing on the inside or the outside. I tend to use my non-dominant hand just for support on both sides of it, and my thumb can kind of work its way across the top of that, making it nice and rounded. This rounded edge is called a ceramic edge. Ceramic edge is what we want. It makes your craftsmanship so much better than what it would be without. All right, now that that's basically finished, I might go in and touch it up a little bit more later on, but I think it's time to go ahead and start the ugly part of our mug, which is the face. Does the face have to be ugly? No, it doesn't have to be ugly. It can be funny. It can be happy. It could be angry. It could be content, super big smile. It's up to you how you want to do this. But in doing so, we want to make sure that we change the shape of our mug some. Otherwise, everybody's going to have buggy-eyed faces that just look like they're attached to the outside of the mug. So even to do this one, the funny one, I'm going to go in and change the shape of the mug. So I'm going to go ahead and I know that our eyes are set back in sockets. So I use one hand on the inside and one hand on the outside with my thumb, and I kind of press and slide. So there's now a dent in it. If I turn it sideways, you can see that. Now, there were dents in it earlier, but they weren't where I wanted them. I'm going to do the same thing in here. I'm keeping my middle finger kind of where the bridge of the nose would be. And how close or far apart the eyes are is kind of up to me. And you can see the top of my mug shape is changing. It's more oval than it was. But that's okay, not a big deal. And as I do this, it is putting strain on those seams where our coils were. So when I look on the inside, I can see that it's those seams are popping out again. I just take my fingers and smooth them over once I have those eye sockets where I want them, and they'll go away pretty easily. And I don't have a nose on the drawing, but I'm going to give it a nose because I think it looks weird without, but maybe that's okay. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit of form there. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to kind of press things in just a little bit where the mouth is going to be. All right, so from the side, it's like a really smushed in face, but it's a start. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these eye sockets, I'm going to shape them a little bit more like what my cartoon looking eyeballs are like. And I can change the top edge a little bit to go along with score and slip. And remember, when you score this, you want it to be rough. You want boogers to stick. And in this situation, just because I'm using the smaller one doesn't mean so we make this area where it's going to stay nice and rough. Have to use some slip. I don't want to use so much water in your clay, then it's just really if you need to add a little water to it. Just run it under the sink faucet real quick. Doesn't have to be completely full, just needs some water. I'm going to leave that there for a minute. We have to make sure that it's pressed on there well, and if it's pressed on there well enough, you will see some clay ooze out, some water and mud and bubbles will ooze out around the edges. And I like to take a tool around here. It kind of cleans things up a little, and after it dries out some more, I might do it again, just because there might be some score marks showing. Part of smoothing things out and not leaving it looking rough is your craftsmanship. Craftsmanship is important in any art, and if you have poor craftsmanship in ceramics, it's going to look like somebody much younger than you made it. So there's the start of my eyes, but you can see in my picture I've got eyelids covering some of this stuff. So I'm going to take some more clay, just little bits, and I'm going to roll it kind of like a little coil. And I can roll this on the table if I want to, but it's so small it'll dry out really fast. So I try not to do that too much with it's such a small coil. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of flatten it out a little bit. Kind of try it out before I score it and slip it, make it permanent. Because I have this piece of clay here. How quickly I forget. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to roll this piece of clay. And I think it's a little bit too much clay. That's all right, because I don't have to use it all. But maybe I will. This one will go here. And this one will go down here. I think that's a little long. So I just tear some of that off. And I'm going to go ahead and score and slip them because I think they're about how I want them. Now you need to remember that if you're not sure what to do, just get in there and do it. Because if you don't give it a try, you're not going to learn. A lot of ceramics, once you know the basics, is just experimenting. So you got to let your brain kind of cut loose and see what will happen. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You try something else. These are a little bit harder to score. I actually have a better time scoring them by holding it in my hands. And now I get to slip them on. Okay, so now they're on there, but they look like they were just plopped on. And when it comes to eyelids, eyelids are actually attached to the skin on the face. So I'm going to maybe go around this just to remove a little bit of the wet, a little bit of that slip that makes it too difficult to smooth things out. I'll start with this one because it looks less muddy. And I'm going to use my finger at the top, or I can use a curved tool, whichever works for you, but either way I usually have to go in and use my fingers to make it how I want it. And I think I'm going to turn this out just a little bit. Turn it up. So if I start to lose my definition right at the bottom of my eyelid, where it meets my eye, I can come back in like this. And redefine it. So that's what I'm going to do. Eyelids cover the eyeballs. Eyeballs don't just sit inside by themselves. They're overlapped. And I have to remember to go in and redefine things. So, yeah, I just like using my fingers better when it comes to most of this. It's a little bit easier to feel what your fingers are doing with the clay. Notice I didn't smooth underneath because I don't want it to attach to the eyeball. That's why I come in and scoop out the slip. It'll make it a lot easier to see once it's all finished. Are eyelids normally attached to each other? No. They're not attached to each other in my drawing either, but I kind of like this. Adds kind of a wrinkled look on the nose, like its nose is all scrunched up. So I think I'm going to leave that attached there. Kind of a happy accident, I think. Okay, and now, it's kind of what I want for now. I'm probably going to add more to it later, but it's a start. It's kind of goofy looking, but I'll take it. I'm going to come in with my hook. I always like to do anything drawing in the clay wise with the hook so I don't go in too deep. Maybe the nose is a little low here. It's the nice thing about clay. If something isn't where I want it, I can move it. We want to do it before it dries, otherwise we won't be able to manipulate or mold the clay like I've been able to do. So now I'm just kind of trying to get this strange grin in here. Okay, now that's a start. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to carve. Remember which tools we used to carve? It's our ribbon tools. So now I have to make sure I don't carve too deep, because if I carve too deep, what will happen? That's right, we'll put a hole in it. And we want these to be functional this time, so no holes in them this time. Some of you had holes in them for your practice mug, and that's just fine. You didn't have any instruction on that, and now you're getting more instruction probably than you'll need. But hopefully you'll be able to use some of this information when you do make your mug. So I'm not carving real deep, but I'm carving just enough that I can make sure that I can see my details. I can go in there and smooth things out, make it look nicer. I can use the wood tools if I need to. I could carve deeper and keep the teeth raised if I want to. Let's go ahead and do some of that just so you can see. I'm going to go in and draw it. And I want his teeth to be kind of crooked. I feel like it just kind of works with the confused look. Okay, so now I can, if I feel like it, I can go in and carve around, or I can add clay to those spots. But I don't really want the teeth to stick out in front of the lip. I want to keep them pushed back behind the lip. So I think this is actually my better option. And just taking away a little bit of the clay helps those teeth stick out, and it gives the mug more life. Now remember, when we're doing this, ugly doesn't mean that you did a poor job putting it together. We want to make sure that I can tell that you really did take the time and do what needs to be done to make a nice product. So that's the top teeth, and I'm going to go ahead and draw in some bottom teeth. And I'm also going to, I think I'm going to put in the tongue. What's the worst thing that might happen if you go too far? You get a hole in it. If you get a hole in it, does that mean you have to start over? No, actually, there's lots of ways to repair that. One way would be to attach clay in from behind. That would definitely work. If I have really small areas that I can't get to with that ribbon tool, I'll use this pointed ribbon tool. But a lot of students, when they do that, they want to just leave this carved outline. I'm not going to leave that there because that looks silly. Not quite as lifelike. And now my tongue has blended in with the background, so that means I need to go into this empty space in the mouth a little bit deeper. And then that allows me to kind of round out the tongue. And I'm also going to go in here and kind of take off the edges just a little bit on those teeth. Not so much that I can't see them compared to the other teeth, but enough that it takes off the rough edges and kind of rounds them out. Okay, so that's basically what I'm doing. Your mugs need to have handles. They can have ears. Eyebrows add to them. If you're someone who works quickly, you could do a face on this side and on this side. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do. And your handles, you want to make sure that they're a good size compared to your mug. You want it to be functional, you want it to be strong. Notice how it's thicker down here than it is right at the handle, and it looks like it grows out of the mug. That helps make it more solid. And then mine is going to have a little hand at the top. I'm hoping it'll maybe look like he's scratching his head in confusion. So this is what I have so far. I'm going to keep going and finish it off. If you have any questions after watching, make sure you let me know.